And today I'm going to talk to you about VCO and as a starting point for modular synthesis. This is part of the Modular Wednesday series, which accompanies a meetup that we are organizing here in my hometown Hanover. So the VCO is actually most of the virtual most of the synthesizer systems. Wow, that was crap. Okay, again. Hi, this is Kai from New Electronic Frontier, and today's video gonna capture the VCO, or voltage controlled oscillator. This is part of the Modular Wednesday series, which is a meetup I'm organizing in my hometown. You can find the link down in the description. It's remote and or here in my hometown. So the VCO, it's a voltage controlled oscillator. This is the base for most synthesis things coming out. I mean, you can also use samples, but today we are talking about an oscillator. An oscillator is actually a machine that creates a waveform of a certain type, okay? And these waveforms, they sound differently. And if you're accustomed to a little bit of music theory, it's like music is waves, right? So it's waves transmitted through air is sound. And the length of a waveform and the magnitude of a waveform actually distinguish how a sound sounds. So how loud it is and how high we hear the pitch from it, okay? So if we look for this VCO, which is a standard VCO coming with VCV Rack, it has a couple of different elements here which I want to highlight. So first of all, let's see down here. So the black ones are the outputs from the module. So this is where you connect the module to other modules, okay? And the white ones are actually the ones where you can connect other modules in this one. So this is like the input row, this is the output row, okay? So if we go now from left to right, we have a sine wave, we have a triangle, a saw wave, and a square wave, okay? This is what's in here. Then we have frequency modulation, which is a bit harder to explain, and we will do later in another video. Then we have the volt per octave pitch input, it's called. This is important because this is actually the one which distinguishes which pitch the oscillator should go for. Okay, so if you think of a keyboard and you play white or black keys, they have a certain pitch on the piano, for example, because the strings behind these keys are tuned to a certain wavelength. So here it is that we have 1 volt per octave. So usually the control voltages range from 0 to 10 volts in Eurorack modular. And we have 1 volt per octave. That means that 1 tone within an octave is a fraction of 1 volt. So, and if the oscillator is tuned right, you have like if you play a C1, for example, and then you play C2, the C2 should, from the voltage value, be exactly 1 volt more than the C1, okay? So then we have a sync option, which is to synchronize more than 1 VCOs. We also do that later. And we have a pulse width modulation. We come to this in a moment. Okay, so now I have a recording here so you can hear the waveforms. But there's one other thing I want to do so you can see actually the waveforms. And within VCV Rack, if you have never used it, if you make a right click, you get to the menus, to the modules. And it can be quite a lot. So I've installed, I don't know how many, really a lot. However, VCV brand, VCV is always a good choice because this is a standard module that comes with it. And I want to have the scope. The scope is super handy simply because a scope is a very expensive module if you buy it inside of a physical rack, right? So it's super handy to have one here, and to some use cases we come also in another video later. So I connect the out to the monitor here, And then we go for the sine wave to the in here. And now we can see like exactly how the sine wave looks like. We just have to adjust the timing factor a bit so you can see that this is a nice sine wave actually. So, okay. So, looks like a nice sine wave to me. Let's see if I can make it a bit more stable so it does not flicker that much. So, okay. Now, as I turn the frequency, if I turn it down, you see the distance between the peaks becomes longer, right? So this is a deeper tone because deeper tones have longer wavelengths. And if I pitch it higher, you see the distance becomes smaller. So this is a higher tone, as you can hear also. Okay, so let's set this back to 12 o'clock. This is a sine wave. So if we now put this into a triangle, you can see that this is like also, and I put it down a bit, this looks like pretty triangular. Okay. And then we have a saw wave, which again sounds different, and you see it's a bit flickery here. And the saw wave actually has one raising flank and one that's then sharp. It can also be a reversed sawtooth. We don't have it on this module, but there's modules out there that can do this. Or you use an extra module to change the direction. That's also possible. And then we have the square wave. And the square wave you see is pretty much like it's getting up. Then you have the top, and then it's getting down directly as well, right? So that's a square wave. And now with the square wave, you have the thing that you have so many pulse lengths. That means like on top, the radio you have on top, it stays on top, you can influence here. So if I make this smaller, you see that the distance between the pulses becomes bigger because the pulse itself is smaller. And then if I make this bigger, you see that I have a very long pulse and a very short pause in between, right? So you can influence this massively, and there's also modules where you can put an offset into this, and this again makes the sound different. And you hear, and that's the whole point of it, you hear that the sound of all these waveforms is different, right? So from left to right, in general, you can say you add more harmonics to the sound, which you can later work with. But don't take this as a always go for the right side because it's more harmonics, it's better. It's just that each sound has a different use case. So with sine wave, you can do different things when with square waves. So the result in the end, when you work with the sound, is pretty much different. So this is actually for the options of a very simple VCO, which if we go down the road, we can work with quite a lot. We will do this in the next video, and we will add some more stuff here. So we get on to the journey to Modular. So if you like this, subscribe for the next video. This was Kai from New Electronic Frontier, and Modular Wednesday meetup, and yeah, I'm happy if you come back.